The cybersecurity market is so interesting right now, and one company I keep coming back to is Zscaler.
Their stock performance and what everyone's saying about them has my attention for sure.
I've noticed that there is a very wide range of price targets from the analysts following this company. Some have it as low as $209 and some as high as $270.
Ah, I see you've been doing your research.
I try. What do you make of that?
Well, it probably comes down to how different analysts value things like market growth potential, the level of competition, or how Zscaler is performing financially.
I guess that makes sense. But how are investors supposed to interpret things like overweight, buy, and hold ratings?
These ratings reflect an analyst's view on a stock. An overweight rating suggests that the analyst believes the stock will outperform the benchmark. A buy rating indicates that they anticipate a price increase, and a hold rating suggests that the stock's performance will likely align with the market.
I'm seeing a generally positive sentiment, but some analysts recommend just holding the stock.
Could that be related to Zscaler exceeding analysts' earnings expectations last quarter?
Maybe. They brought in $592.90 million in revenue, which is significantly higher than the anticipated $567.46 million.
It wouldn't surprise me if that contributed to firms raising their price targets.
One report did mention potential large deal delays.
That is something to keep in mind.
Do you think that could impact Zscaler's performance in the future?
Enterprise deals often have a cyclical nature to them, and with the uncertainty in the economy right now, it's possible that tech spending could be affected.
That's true. I also wanted to ask you about the insider trading activity. There have been some big stock sales by Zscaler insiders recently.
Oh, really? Like what?
The CEO sold 2,852 shares, and another insider sold 4,947 shares.
How do you think investors should interpret those moves?
I was hoping you could tell me.
Well, insider trading can be viewed in different ways. If insiders are buying a stock, it might mean they're confident in the company. However, if they are selling, it could raise some concerns.
So should we be concerned?
Not necessarily. Insiders sell for various reasons, like maybe they need cash or they want to diversify their investments.
So maybe these sales are nothing to worry about.
It's hard to say without having all the details.
Do you think it's better to focus on overall trends in insider activity rather than these isolated incidents?
For sure. It's more informative to look for patterns. If you see multiple insiders selling off substantial portions of their holdings, that might tell you more about their overall sentiment.
That makes sense. Institutional investors hold a big chunk of Zscaler stock, around 46.45%.
That's interesting.
What kind of impact do they have on the stock price?
Institutional investors like hedge funds and big investment firms do a lot of research, and the decisions they make can influence how the market perceives a stock.
So their actions carry a lot of weight.
Definitely. They manage huge amounts of capital, so when they buy or sell a stock, it can really move the price.
I've noticed that some firms have actually been increasing their positions in Zscaler lately.
Oh, like who?
Geode Capital Management and Champlain Investment Partners are two examples.
It sounds like they believe Zscaler has the potential to keep growing. Their investments could be seen as a vote of confidence.
So that aligns with the generally positive sentiment we've been discussing.
I think so. Now, let's shift gears and talk about earnings estimate revisions.
Okay. Earnings estimate revisions are when analysts update their forecasts for a company's future earnings. Why are they so important for investors?
They give us a peek into what the market expects and how those expectations are changing. Analysts update their forecasts based on the latest news about a company, how the industry is doing, and the overall economic climate.
So if analysts keep raising their earnings estimates, does that mean they're more confident about the company making more money?
Generally, upward revisions are a good sign. It shows they're becoming more optimistic. On the other hand, if they keep lowering their estimates, that can make investors nervous and the stock price might go down.
Zscaler's earnings estimates for this year have stayed pretty stable. What do you make of that?
It's possible the market has already factored in Zscaler's recent success. The good news might already be reflected in the stock price.
That could be why some analysts are suggesting to just hold the stock even though the company is exceeding expectations and growing steadily.
It's a possibility.
One report I read argued against relying too much on those analyst ratings for investment decisions.
Why is that?
It said those recommendations can oversimplify things. Just saying buy or hold doesn't tell the whole story.
I see their point. Reducing a company's performance and prospects to just one word could be misleading.
What do you think about the Zacks rank as an alternative approach? How does that model work?
The Zacks rank uses a quantitative model that looks at changes in earnings estimates. They give stocks a ranking from 1 to 5. A rank of 1 means strong buy, and 5 means strong sell. Instead of relying on opinions, it focuses on hard data.
Zscaler currently has a Zacks rank of 3, a hold recommendation.
Interesting. So even though the analysts seem positive, the Zacks rank is more cautious. It shows the importance of getting different perspectives.
Let's take a closer look at Zscaler's latest earnings report.
What did they report?
One of the reports broke down their financials for the last quarter. Zscaler exceeded expectations, reporting earnings per share of -5 cents, beating the estimated -14 cents. Their revenue was also higher than predicted, coming in at $592.90 million instead of the expected $567.46 million.
Those are some impressive numbers.
What's your initial take on those figures?
Zscaler clearly beat the forecasts for both earnings and revenue, which shows they had a strong quarter. And their year-over-year revenue growth of 30.3% is very solid.
What do you attribute that growth to?
I'd say it's connected to the increasing demand for cybersecurity solutions. With more and more things happening online, especially with cloud computing and remote work, businesses need ways to keep their data safe.
The report did mention that Zscaler's net margin and return on equity were negative for the quarter.
So they are prioritizing expansion and capturing market share, which isn't uncommon for companies in a high-growth stage.
But there are some risks to that approach.
Absolutely. To maintain this rapid growth, they need to keep innovating and executing their plans effectively. And in a competitive market like cybersecurity, Zscaler has to stay ahead of the curve.
That's for sure. Let's move on to the insider trading activities. One of the reports focused on recent stock transactions made by the CEO and other insiders. It seems the CEO, Jagtar Singh Chaudhry, sold 2,852 shares of company stock at an average price of $171.28.
CEO stock sales always catch my attention.
I can imagine. What do they usually tell you?
They can be interpreted as a sign that someone high up in the company isn't so confident about the future. But again, it's important to remember that insiders sell stock for a variety of reasons.
Like we discussed earlier, it could be for personal financial needs or
Yeah.
to diversify their portfolio.
Exactly. But the report also mentioned that another insider, Robert Schlossman, sold 4,947 shares of Zscaler stock at an average price of $170.22. And apparently, in the past 3 months, insiders have sold a total of over 30,502 shares, worth over $5.2 million. That's something to keep in mind.
So even if there are good reasons for individual sales, a consistent pattern of selling by multiple insiders does raise some questions.
It does.
What about institutional investors? What are they doing with Zscaler stock?
Let's dive into that.
One report I came across highlighted that institutional investors and hedge funds currently own 46.45% of Zscaler's outstanding shares.
That's a large percentage.
It seems they have a big stake in the company's success. The report also noted that several firms, including Geode Capital Management, Champlain Investment Partners, Bank of New York Mellon Corp., Westfield Capital Management, and Federated Hermes, Inc., increased their positions in Zscaler over the past few quarters.
Do you think this aligns with the overall positive sentiment we've been seeing?
I do. These firms are putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak. It looks like they believe in Zscaler's growth potential.
I agree. Their investments could be seen as a strong vote of confidence in Zscaler's future. But we also need to remember that even these big players can get it wrong sometimes.
It's true. They aren't always right.
So while their actions are informative, it's important to do your own research and understand why they're making those decisions.
What else should we be looking at to get a better grasp of Zscaler's potential?
Maybe we should dig deeper into how analysts come up with their price targets and recommendations.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
There are reports that offer a behind-the-scenes look at their process.
I know they do a lot of research and gather data from different sources, but how much of it is subjective?
Well, analysts use their experience and knowledge to interpret the data. That's where things can get a bit subjective. Even if they have the same information, different analysts can come to different conclusions.
Do you think that's why we see so much variation in price targets, even when analysts are looking at the same company?
Exactly. Some analysts might focus more on a company's history of success, while others might give more weight to their potential for growth.
I see what you mean. It's like different analysts have different priorities.
Right. And it's important to remember that what analysts say is just their opinion. It's not guaranteed to be true.
So, like you said earlier, investors should always do their own research.
Absolutely. Don't just rely on what one analyst says. Look at different perspectives and make your own informed decisions.
Okay, what else should we be thinking about when it comes to Zscaler?
What about their position in the cybersecurity market? I think that's worth exploring further.
Let's do that. What have you found in the reports?
The reports I've seen highlight the rapid growth of the cybersecurity market. It's being driven by things like increasingly sophisticated cyber attacks and the fact that everyone is relying more and more on cloud computing.
And where does Zscaler fit into all of this?
They seem well positioned to capitalize on this growth. Their cloud-native platform offers a wide range of security solutions, and their commitment to user-friendly design makes them a strong contender.
What kind of competition are they up against?
They are facing off against some big names in the industry, companies like Palo Alto Networks, Cisco Systems, and Fortinet. These companies have been around for a while, they have tons of resources, and they already have a good chunk of the market.
So how does Zscaler stand out in such a crowded field?
I think their emphasis on a smooth user experience is a key differentiator. Plus, they're always looking for ways to adapt to new threats, which gives them an edge.
It sounds like they are taking the right steps to stay ahead of the game. But how about those recent insider stock sales we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, let's revisit that. It seems like those sales have made some investors nervous. They are wondering if it's a sign that people inside the company are losing faith.
Like we discussed, it's possible that those sales were for personal reasons, like needing cash or wanting a more diverse investment portfolio.
You are right, there could be perfectly innocent explanations.
But if several insiders are consistently selling off large chunks of their stock, that might be a red flag.
I agree. We have to look for those patterns.
What can we learn from looking at how institutional investors are treating Zscaler?
That's always a good angle to explore.
One report pointed out that institutional investors, which include things like hedge funds, mutual funds, and pension funds, currently own a significant portion of Zscaler's outstanding shares, about 46.45%.
That's a big vote of confidence.
The report also mentions several big firms that have been increasing their positions in Zscaler.
Who are they?
Geode Capital Management, Champlain Investment Partners, Bank of New York Mellon Corp., Westfield Capital Management, and Federated Hermes, Inc.
That is a pretty strong endorsement. It sounds like they see potential for continued growth in Zscaler.
Absolutely, and their actions align with the positive sentiment we've observed from the analysts.
It definitely paints an optimistic picture, but it's crucial for investors to remember that even these big institutional players don't always get it right.
That's a good reminder. They are not infallible.
Nope, they're not. Even with all their expertise and resources, they can still make mistakes, just like anyone else.
So we need to be careful about putting too much weight on their actions.
We should. And always do your own homework.
Let's dig a bit deeper into how those analysts make their predictions and come up with their price targets.
Sounds good to me.
I know they do a lot of research and look at all sorts of data, but I'm curious how much of their analysis is based on facts versus their own personal judgment.
It's a mix of both. They use hard data from company reports, industry trends, and economic forecasts, but then they have to interpret that data. And that's where their experience and understanding of the market come into play.
So that's why different analysts can arrive at different price targets even when they're looking at the same information.
Exactly. They might weigh certain factors differently or have different levels of confidence in the company's management team. It's not an exact science.
That makes sense. It's more like an educated guess based on all the information they have.
Right. It's a judgment call based on their expertise.
What else should investors keep in mind when they're looking at analyst opinions?
It's a good idea to check out the analyst's track record. Some analysts are better at predicting the future than others.
I like that idea. Look at their past performance to see how accurate they've been.
And don't forget that the cybersecurity landscape is always changing. New threats are emerging all the time, and companies have to adapt to stay competitive.
Zscaler can't just rest on their laurels. They have to keep innovating and stay ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Let's talk more about those challenges in the next section.
So to maintain their competitive edge, Zscaler has to keep innovating and anticipating future trends.
And they can't forget about those established players with deep pockets and a lot of market share.
What are some of the challenges you see Zscaler facing?
They have to keep up with the competition and be prepared to adapt to whatever comes next in the cybersecurity landscape.
It's a fast-paced industry. What else should we be looking at to get a comprehensive view of Zscaler's potential?
We should examine reports that delve into recent insider trading activity.
Okay, what have those reports revealed?
Some investors are concerned about recent stock sales by Zscaler insiders, particularly the CEO, Jagtar Singh Chaudhry.
I can understand why that would raise eyebrows.
It's important to remember that insiders sell stock for various reasons. It's not always a sign of lost confidence in the company.
Sometimes they might just need the money for personal reasons or want to diversify their investments.
Exactly. But when multiple insiders are consistently selling off significant amounts of stock, it does warrant further investigation.
What other factors should investors consider when evaluating insider trading activity?
Look at the volume and frequency of those transactions over time. A pattern of consistent selling might indicate something more than just routine portfolio adjustments.
We should also consider the perspectives of those big institutional investors, like hedge funds, mutual funds, and pension funds.
Definitely, their actions can have a big impact on stock prices.
One report I came across said that institutional investors and hedge funds currently hold a sizable chunk of Zscaler's outstanding shares, about 46.45%.
That's a significant stake. What else did the report say?
It also mentioned that several prominent firms have recently increased their positions in Zscaler.
So they're betting on Zscaler's continued growth.
It seems like their investments align with a generally positive sentiment we've seen from analysts.
It's encouraging, but investors should always remember that even these sophisticated players can make mistakes.
So we shouldn't blindly follow their lead.
Never. Always do your own research and due diligence.
Any final thoughts on Zscaler and its investment potential?
Zscaler is in a strong position to capitalize on the growth of the cybersecurity market, but they operate in a dynamic and competitive environment. Their success will depend on their ability to innovate, adapt, and execute their strategies effectively.
It sounds like a compelling story, but investors need to carefully weigh the potential risks and rewards before making any decisions.
I agree. Informed decisions are always the best decisions.
Goodbye, and see you in the next video.
Goodbye, and see you in the next video.